All right, let's break down one of the most powerful and, honestly, game-changing self-help books ever written. For nearly a century, Dale Carnegie's ideas have been turning everyday conversations into massive opportunities. So, how does it all work? Well, it starts in a place you would never, ever expect. To really get what Carnegie is all about, we have to first understand a pretty shocking truth about human nature. And our story begins with one of the biggest manhunts in the history of New York City. So, who do you think wrote that? A poet? Some misunderstood artist? Nope. Those words were written by the notorious Two-Gun Crowley. He was a cold-blooded cop killer, and he wrote this note while police were literally blasting his apartment with machine gun fire. In his own mind, he was a kind, gentle person who was just defending himself. And that right there, that's the central question, isn't it? If a guy who shot a police officer in cold blood saw absolutely nothing wrong with his own actions, what does that tell you about the people you deal with every day? The coworker you disagree with, that family member you argue with? How did they see themselves in the story? And this is where we get to Carnegie's first huge insight. Crowley didn't blame himself. You know who else didn't? Al Capone. He honestly saw himself as a public servant. The warden of Sing Sing prison once said that almost no criminals he ever met saw themselves as bad guys. They rationalize, they justify. And this basic fact of human nature leads us straight to Carnegie's first and maybe most important principle. So this brings us to a really powerful idea for how to deal with people. If we just accept that everyone thinks they're the good guy in their own movie, what does that mean for our number one go-to tactic when we disagree? Criticism. Here's the thing about criticism. It's useless. It's futile, because you're not dealing with a creature of logic, you're dealing with a creature of emotion. And all criticism does is wound someone's pride, hurt their ego, and it almost always just makes them resent you. It just doesn't work. It doesn't create any real, lasting change. Let's look at a real-world example. There was a safety coordinator, George Johnston, who used to yell at his construction crew to wear their hard hats. And sure, they'd put them on, but the second he turned his back, they take them right off. So he tried a new way. He went up to them and, in a friendly tone, just asked if the hats were uncomfortable and gently reminded them they were designed to protect them from injury. And the result? People wanted to comply. It was willing cooperation, not just resentful obedience. It really all boils down to this. Abraham Lincoln had a great saying: "A drop of honey catches more flies than a gallon of gall." You can go in with criticism and arguments, and maybe you'll win the argument, but you'll lose the person. Or you can try a friendly approach and actually win them over to your side. Okay, so if criticism is out, what are we supposed to do instead? Well, Carnegie lays out 6 super simple but incredibly effective ways to make people actually genuinely like you. Now, these might sound really obvious, right? But think about how rare they are. In a world where most people are just waiting for their turn to talk, taking a real, genuine interest in someone else is a huge deal. A sincere smile says, "I like you," without you having to say a single word. And using someone's name, oh, that's the big one. It's like you're acknowledging their entire existence. These aren't just tricks. They are some of the most powerful tools you have. And if you're thinking, remembering names isn't that big a deal, I want you to look at this number, 50,000. That's how many people a political strategist named Jim Farley could supposedly call by their first name. And that one skill, it was a huge part of the machine that helped put Franklin D. Roosevelt in the White House. It's that powerful. So let's say you've built that connection. People like you. Now what? How do you actually persuade someone to see things your way without getting into a big fight about it? Carnegie's method for persuasion is, well, it's pretty subtle. It's not about being the best debater in the room. In fact, it's about avoiding the debate entirely. It's about building these little bridges of agreement and then guiding the person to a conclusion that they feel like they came up with all on their own. This yes technique is pure genius, and it goes way back. We're talking ancient Greece. The philosopher Socrates never told people they were wrong. Instead, he would just ask these gentle questions that they had to agree with. See, every yes creates this psychological momentum. Our brains want to be consistent. So once we start agreeing, it's a lot harder to suddenly slam on the brakes and say no. It's an amazing way to lead someone right to your conclusion. All right, so we've talked about how to get people to like you and how to persuade them. But Carnegie believed that all of these principles, everything in his book, could really be boiled down to one single overarching secret. And it's an idea that is so simple, so completely obvious, you're going to wonder how you ever missed it. But the crazy part is, almost nobody does it, almost all of the time. And there you have it. That quote from Henry Ford is what Carnegie considered the absolute foundation of all human relations. It's the ability to honestly try to see the world through someone else's eyes, to truly understand their point of view. And Carnegie didn't just teach this, he lived it. One time, a hotel he was using for his lectures threatened to triple his rent. Now, the normal reaction would be to argue, right? That's too high, I can't afford it. But Carnegie didn't do that. Instead, he made a list of all the pros and cons for the hotel. He focused entirely on their needs and showed them how losing his business would actually cost them money. The result was incredible. They only raised his rent by 50% instead of the 300% they wanted. At the end of the day, that's what this all comes down to. It's the golden rule. You need to figure out what the other person wants and then show them how to get it. That one little shift in your perspective, from focusing on your needs to focusing on theirs, that's the key to the whole thing. So, the next time you're about to walk into a meeting or ask for a favor or try to convince someone of something, just stop for 1 second. Put your own agenda on the back burner and ask yourself this one simple, incredibly powerful question. It honestly might change everything for you.